Hi, and welcome back to the Four of Wands podcast. I'm Euryale, and this is Kellin, and we are down Wolf, because Wolf's a dog. No, they're sick. They're sick. No, we love Wolf. Oh, but how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I think this is my first weekend off in a minute from work, so just slept in, and that was great.
Oh man, I slept in too this morning. Actually, woke up and I was like, "What year is it?" Felt like I came out of the Jumanji board.
That's too real. It's just like my body is so used to getting up so early, and then it was just like, hello, the sun, what's happening?
Mm-hmm. Literally. Oh my gosh. I can't wait for daylight savings, but I love daylight savings.
Literally. I can't wait to feed my cat at 7 instead of 6 because she just has no concept of daylight savings.
She's like, I'm hungry now.
I want my food now. Excuse me. Wait, she's on the... For those who can see, she's actually being adorable on the bed right now.
Stop. I thought that was a blanket or something. So fluffy and gorgeous.
She will literally jump onto my chest and put her little paw to my mouth to tell me that she's hungry. So there's no avoiding her in the morning.
I love that so much. That's adorable.
It's precious.
It's almost like she's learned ASL though, like sign language.
Yeah, oh my god, literally. She's like, lunch now.
I love that though. That's so sweet. Oh, so tell us a little bit about yourself. You look fucking amazing, by the way. I love your aesthetic.
Thank you so much.
And when you got up before to get your teacup, I was like admiring the aesthetic of your home. I'm like, that's really a vibe.
Thank you so much. I try hard. I feel like it's whimsy goth adjacent, but not quite as hot goth as, my dreams.
It's like dark academia and like whimsy goth mixed with memento mori.
Thank you so much. That is that's everything.
From a tourist moon to a tourist.
Yeah, literally.
The aesthetic matters. The aesthetic matters.
Truly does. Thank you. Anyway, well, my name is Kellin. I use they, them pronouns. I would consider myself a Hellenic pagan. I'm a devotee of Lady Hecate. Relevant to today's podcast, I have a degree in gender studies, also in art history, for your curiosity.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm a queer, asexual person. Romantic orientation's a big old question mark. Like, I guess biromantic on the aromantic spectrum. Look, I don't know, girls are pretty, but I'm confused.
Yeah.
Queer asexual is generally what I opt for.
Yeah.
And yeah, I work at a gallery and I study. That's basically my life at the moment. Yeah.
It's so cool to work at a gallery.
It's honestly so wonderful. It's not like high up in the chain or anything, but it's like literally
surrounded by the vibe of art.
Literally. And just being
I would really struggle to achieve anything though. I'd be like getting lost in all the artwork.
Really. And it's like, oh no, I need to be watching for people like touching the artwork and I'm just appreciating it.
Yep.
No, but it's so pretty. Like stay focused.
Oh, but that's the dream though. Because like art is magic, I think.
Yes. Oh my god, I could talk at length. But it's just putting intention behind something beautiful, like
exactly.
It affects, your experience with the space. It affects like how people interact with it. Like it's it's so magical.
It changes everything. And I swear maths is like a form of magic as well. But that's another topic.
That's another podcast episode. Art meets witchcraft.
Literally though. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what song has been non-stop playing in your head lately? Or what have you been obsessed song-wise lately?
I have been listening to Glass House's Wonderful Nothing. It's like punk alternative, slightly not quite punk. It's into that. It's leaning into that arena.
Yeah.
Very good. The lyricism's a lot of fun. I'm also obsessed with Sophie somebody called Mic Check. It's a rap. It kind of had a moment on TikTok.
I love that though.
And her surname, Sophie Hunter, Mic Check. So
Yeah.
good. Very, very different songs. Because Mike is a rap. And yeah, but they're both like, I just love fun rhymes. I think that's my preferred, and anything that keeps me engaged for long enough, because otherwise I lose interest.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I love rhyming. If I could speak in rhymes all the time, I fucking would.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
But then I'd get bored of myself and then just be like, my Aquarius rising could never if everyone started doing it. Oh, amazing. So what country are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from Boomerang Country, which is in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne.
Oh, beautiful. Amazing. I moved, but I'm still on Dark and Young country. So I love Dark and Young country. It's so beautiful here.
So gorgeous.
So you said you're a devotee to Lady Hecate and work predominantly within the ancient Greek pantheon. So what does your witchcraft practice look like?
Yeah, I mean, Lady Hecate's been putting me through the ringer of late, which is a lot of fun, but like it was a big shift. It used to be I still do, but I used to work much closer with Lord Helios as well. And I would kind of have like a day, like on Sundays I would dedicate to Lord Helios, and I would spend the morning doing prayers and like sun shit, and then on like Mondays it would be Lady Hecate because of the moon, and I'd be doing more shadow shit. It was very much thinking about, I guess, like it's trying to work out the kind of space between those things, which is very Hecate devotee of me to say. But like I don't know, I at the moment has been very I guess trying to going with the ebb and flow of the seasons in like a slower way, unless I was very structured on like this day I would do this, on this day I would do that, which isn't necessarily with the flow of the seasons or other cycles of like life and stuff. So it's been like, I guess my like aggressive Taurus sun's like, let's do this structure with this pretty thing this day. It's like, actually, let's not like enforce this kind of thing and actually go more fluidly. So I'm trying to be less structured and just kind of go with what's happening. But yeah, I guess it's mostly just, it's a lot of prayer and it's a lot of fun candle magic. It's a lot of, I do a lot of sewing and embroidery into my magics. It's very important to me, and a means of like weaving intention and slowing down, especially. I have a lot of my magic is like pretty hanging things around the place. It's a lot of that. So Taurus, oh my god, just being read for filth.
Very Taurus Venus energy. It's like, look at this wonderful thing I've created. It's gorgeous.
But yeah, that's probably most of my practice. Lots of reading, a lot of research. Yeah.
Textiles is something that I've never been able to master. Like, give me like hands-on crafts, jewelry making, that type of stuff. I'll be fine. Give me textiles and I'm just like, yep.
That's so real.
Why is it not now? The grill, why doesn't mine look like that?
Look, I'm definitely not at the level of like making like jackets and stuff. It's very much like big blanket or like embroidery, I guess, is maybe a little bit more technical, that I'll do like pictures and stuff and beadwork. But I definitely can't make a garment, so I don't know how to use a sewing machine. That scares me. Is needle going fast?
Intimidating. Like a big drill thing?
Yeah. That's too much.
Going through it.
She's like, I don't want to turn this into a blood ritual. Let's relax. Like, it's just too much.
This makes the local newspaper. Woman takes on sewing machine and loses. You're like, bro, they pronounced me wrong.
Oh, literally that.
Oh my goodness, though. My gender's a big question mark. Honestly, I think I'm just fluid. I think that's kind of the easiest way to say it because I don't know what I am. Everything and nothing.
Yeah.
If I could just be in a morph suit all the time, I'd be cheering.
I would rather just be a floating ball of energy. Like I don't know what's with this flesh suit. Like I like customizing it, I guess, but like I don't know.
Yeah, character customization is cool.
Yeah, that's kind of fun, but I don't know why it costs money to customize. That's not fair.
Right? So not fair. Oh my goodness. So we have giggled for about 10, 11 minutes now. I suppose we should actually go into the topic of what today is, which, yes, your degree is very fitting for. So we're talking about queer theory today. So I guess like the easiest way to start the conversation is like, why is the study and understanding of queer theory so important to you?
Absolutely. I'll start with like I guess like what queer theory is. So it is a theory as in a study, a lens of analysis, a way of thinking, which is something that arose out of America in the academy and like universities or like college. It actually largely kind of began in the university, actually when university was free for a minute there. And suddenly people of color, women, queer people could suddenly attend university and they would go to university and they go, actually there's a lot of biases here. They would see something like, I don't know, an example I think people know about is like seatbelts were designed like using male mannequins, like a thin, like average height male body. And so it actually isn't as safe for people who are pregnant, for like people of different body sizes, people of different heights. Like they're trying to remove variables, but they're actually like there's a lot of biases in what those variables are.
Yeah.
And so all these people who are part of minority groups are like, there's like issues here. And what we now know is like women's studies and gender studies actually just arose from standard like feminism that began in the university and then kind of became a discipline of its own. And queer theory, of course, the word queer coming from like the queer liberation movements, 70s, 80s, 90s, kind of depending where you are in the world and why. Which was, you can kind of think of queer history in some ways. A lot of this is very American centric because that's where the discipline came from. You can kind of think of two different ways these politics arose. One was like assimilationist politics and one was liberationist. Assimilationist being like, we're just like you. We just happen to like somebody of the same gender. Really wanting to be normal in society and not wanting to like shove it in their face. And then you've got like liberationists, which was very, where we get that wonderful term or phrase, like, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. That very like, actually we are different and that's great, and like why do we have to get rights from you when you built this system without us in mind? Like you shouldn't just give us rights. Like what? Like who gave you the right to give us rights and not give us rights? That doesn't make sense. It's very anti-institutional. It's very like tear it down. Like why is this like this? You know, we're allowed to be out and loud. So queer, particularly in the academy and in like the idea of the word queer entirely, it's not just about identity. It's not just about diverse gender and sexuality, although it's an important part of it. Queer is also being anti-institutional. It's being anti-capitalist. It's thinking about non-normative ideas. So in the academy, queer can also be used to talk about, say, disability or race or other or class, like intersecting modes that are considered not the norm, because the norm isn't just somebody who's cisgender and heterosexual, but the norm is also somebody who is white, somebody who is thin, somebody who is middle or upper class. So there's these other things that are considered the norm. So queer theory, this analytic, it's a way of thinking queerly. It's a way of thinking differently, weird, non-normative, to deconstruct. And it's so important to my practice, getting to the actual question that you asked. It's so important for me to understand not just about how I sit in the world as somebody who's like got a different experience of gender and sexuality, but also in like, what does abundance look to me under a system that is designed for me not to succeed? Like,
Yeah.
because abundance isn't just about my individual sense of abundance, but also abundance for my community. How am I meant to be spoiled if my friend can't shout me lunch? Like, it's abundance in a much broader sense. It's about broader liberation. And when I think about what queer theory means to me in terms of understanding it and relating it to my practice, it's actually really questioning not only the knowledge that we read and where these ideas come from, which in many, many ways can be incredibly problematic,
Yeah.
which we can talk about at length, and I'm sure we will. But also just about like what am I using this for and why, and just broadening that sense of like not making it so individualistic, which I think is a real problem, particularly in New Age spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Is this like, let me ignore all the problems of the world, and only I can pull myself up by my bootstraps and fix it with magic. And it's like, well, actually, like there's broader things at play. Like you can't just tear down the patriarchy with a candle.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a darn nuisance, but you know.
So, in short, I guess paraphrasing, queer theory is kind of like a way of thinking. So, thinking about the world in a way where we're not thinking as if we're still in systemic issues type thing. Would that be a paraphrase?
I think that's fair. Absolutely, it's basically questioning.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. To paraphrase your paraphrase,
Question everything.
it's question everything. Yeah, to not take categories for granted, to not take the words we use for granted. Yeah,
I love that. That's so important. That's like such an important part of like discernment as well, like that core foundation of discernment. Like, should I be
absolutely.
reading this, listening to this? Is this good for me?
Mm-hmm.
Does what they say align with me? So, I guess as well, what is normativity or heteronormativity?
Absolutely. Yeah, heteronormativity. So hetero, of course, referring to heterosexuality, being in a straight relationship, like woman and man, and normativity being the norm, like that it's natural, that it's innate. So the idea that being straight or heterosexual is something that's normal for every person, that everybody pursues it, and that it's like the most natural way of partnership between two people. And not only that, that it assumes the gender binary. So the idea that there are men and women, that those are the only genders, and that they are like complementary or contradict each other. Like there's ways that they are different. They don't even talk about similarities, actually. It's just the way that they are different, the ways that they oppose.
Yeah.
And that these are a natural part of being in a straight relationship of gender. So when you're single, you're still trying to find somebody of this like complementary half. So the idea that that's normal, that's like everybody experiences. And that it's actually something that is like should be held up in like it should be a privileged relationship, and that it should be above your friendships, above your familial relations, above like any other type of connection. It should be the priority.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess like that really hits home for me as well. Like, because I was a later in life lesbian. Um, and like I knew when I was younger, but then also being neurospicy, it's like, is this just me? And is this just how everyone feels? And then there's a whole lot of other story in there as well. But it's kind of like you get to a point with your own discernment and like questioning things. And it's like, I actually don't fit into this box that I was put in. I didn't choose it, but I was put in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a soft spot for me, I guess, still going through that. So that's how heteronormativity, I guess, has experienced me on a very brief level. Um, so how would it affect the world overall by having those constructs, I guess, in place as the normal?
It's a big question.
That's a big question. I'm just like, answer this.
How it affects the world. Well, it affects what roles we are allowed to inhabit, and the ways we move through the world, like what is and isn't allowed in terms of like simple things like how you act. This notion of like women being passive, or like they can't be too emotional, but they are the nurturers. They can only be emotional in this way.
Yeah.
And then that they should provide for their husband, who isn't allowed to be emotional. The only emotion he's allowed to express is anger, and then he is meant to be the one of structure, and that he has to be the breadwinner. And although we can see some of these things shifting,
Yeah.
a lot of that is still embedded in different ways, because it also informs like what jobs people pursue, and very structural things of like maternity leave, or whether they're allowed to take it. A lot of fathers get very little. So even if you wanted to switch the roles, they can't get that kind of leave off work. And then, it affects what we can and can't do in so many ways, in small moments, whether that's like, I always remember like when we'd have like a family gathering, the women would start cleaning the kitchen. Like it was just like the men would never get up and offer, even if they're really nice people. It was just so natural. And then I would pick that up, as this like person assigned female at birth, and I would help clean. It's just this like simple things that build up in very real ways that affect how you choose to move through the world. And we say choose, like there's an illusion of choice in a lot of ways. It's like, oh, well, I'm naturally more nurturing, so I'm going to go do this kind of job. And it just happens to be more undervalued because emotional labor isn't seen as labor, and so on and so forth.
I think like it also, skipping a lot, I think as well, like it can bring a lot of shame to people if they don't fit into that box that they've been assigned, or that thing that they've chosen. It can end up bringing a lot of shame. Like, say, if you're someone that isn't particularly nurturing but is assigned female at birth, and then I don't know, it can kind of ricochet. And same with men as well. Like men experience the downsides of it too. Um, inability to express emotions comfortably and feel okay doing so. Like, yeah, it definitely is shit to someone else.
Yeah, it's unobtainable. So gender roles for cisgender and transgender people, like they're unobtainable, and they're designed to be unattainable. Like men can't reach this what's called hegemonic masculinity. It's this type of masculinity that is impossible to achieve because you can't constantly be grinding. It's just like that's not possible.
Like the American dream.
Yeah,
like it's that type of vibe.
Absolutely. It's meant to be unobtainable, which makes you feel disempowered, which means you don't do collective action to fight against these powers and make change.
So it's, again, it all comes down to oppression of people from the start. So they blame everyone else around them, not the people keeping them down.
Absolutely.
So you don't realize how big it is until you actually start thinking about it. And it's like, man, this whole thing's fucked. Can we just restart?
Yeah. Put capitalism in the bin. Let's try something else.
So, from your opinion, how can gender roles influence a person's practice?
I have a lot of big feelings about this. I want to kind of start with a disclaimer of like, I think there is utility to gender in practice. I think especially if you're somebody affected by patriarchy and you want to work with a notion of femininity, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
Wanting to find what femininity means to you that isn't about being in opposition to men, that isn't about being oppressed under patriarchy. What does femininity mean in a way that's far more positive and beautiful, which it absolutely is and can be?
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense to me. If you're a person who's affected by, if you're a masculine person affected by patriarchy, or you're affected by toxic masculinity, wanting to work with a notion of masculinity again makes sense. How can I think about masculinity without thinking about anger, without thinking about oppressing women, without thinking about a lot of masculinity is like just having sex with women, and it's like, well, there's like so much more to like being a man or being masculine than just having sex with women. So like working with that makes a lot of sense to me. The things that I criticize in terms of gender elements in the craft is that a lot of it is reinforcing heteronormativity, the idea that the sun is a man and the moon is a woman is just heteronormativity. Like, yes, they are siblings in a lot of cultures, but same with like Zeus and Hera, like they are siblings but also married because marriage is very different in ancient times.
Yes.
They're more about connecting powers than they are about like love, and it was a very different construct during that time. But anyway, it's like that's just heteronormativity again, and that's enforcing a gender binary in itself, that like men are the ones who can see all, the ones who can be active, and that women are these like naturally like flowing creatures and like have these all hidden mysteries and can't like figure out what's going on in women's heads. It's like, oh my god.
Literally.
And like, not that either of these things are like you can't inhabit those things, it's just that they're not inherent to either gender. Similar with the elements, like fire is this powerful, passionate burst of energy. This idea that men could be angry and spark up, but it's seen as this powerful thing. It's not a bad thing. The fact that air is masculine and it's intelligent, it's the ideas that come out of our mind, it's the words that we formulate as we speak out. Believe it or not, women can think women can think thoughts in their head, and they can be passionate and it be amazing and not something to shut down. Similar with water being feminine, like anybody can be nurturing, anybody can like give birth to ideas, give birth to things that are not just a biological baby. Like, and then earth, like again, everyone can be nurturing, anybody can it's just like, I think with gender, if I could like give a call to action to people listening, it's like, just be intentional about gender. Like, why am I using it? Like, if you were to call in a feminine fire, would that change your spell, and why? And I would, in my experience, yes, it does. And that it's different. But do you even need that gender? Could you just call in fire, and how would that change your spell, your experience of that element? It's just to be intentional and think about why. And, you know, I think, you know, somebody who works predominantly within ancient Greek magic, ancient Greece was a patriarchy. I'm not bringing the patriarchy into my household. Hell no. So, like, I'm going to criticize like what these things mean. But even if, like, even turning to those, like, people, like, you know, Hestia is a fire goddess. It's the hearth. Like, why are we prescribing masculinity solely to this notion of fire? But also, why is masculine anger anyway? Why is fire, like, how useful is it, and why?
Oh, 100%. Like, and it's coming from trad practice. Like, I guess it's commonplace to call them like Father Fire, Father Air, Mother Water, Mother Earth. And like, that's how over time they've presented themselves to me. But I think it was you and Corfi that asked me why I call that. And it's like, well, it's what tradcraft does. It's tradition, but it's also like how they're presented to me. And then I was really sat with it, and I'm like, is that really me choosing that for them, or is that just me So I've been delving deeper into that. And
Absolutely.
that's why I like the campfire idea of like the community that we're creating, because you'll always find I'm always learning from everyone within the community.
Absolutely. I think, even if when spirits appear to us, I don't believe that those things are in a vacuum either. Like,
Yes.
I believe that they kind of show up in a way that we can understand in some capacity. They're always kind of trying to shape so we can figure them out. And I implore people to be like, are all your deities white? Why? Are all your you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna tell me the sun god is white, sun god is white. No.
Oh my gosh, you got a snort from that one and a tear. Oh my goodness.
It's
But
just,
there's so many people out there, especially anyway.
it's still, we're still interpreting, and to really question those categories and why. I remember I bought I particularly dislike the gendering of crystals. That's something that I particularly get a bit fired up about. Other ones, there's a bit more tradition to it, which I can respect and understand, across many cultures. But when it comes to crystals, I particularly can't get behind. I bought this blue rose quartz. It's very pretty. It's this beautiful little lavender color. I go online and I'm like, what are the metaphysical properties of blue rose quartz? And it said a balance of the masculine and feminine. And I said, is that because blue is for boys and pink is for girls?
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, what? I was like, I don't know about that one, bestie. I'm not sure about that one. And we know that colors have had different variations of what, if they're associated with, pink used to be a hugely masculine color during different eras. And that said, a lot of witchcraft, the visual of something is what informs their metaphysical properties. If a plant was shaped like a heart, it was often used for matters of the heart. So not to dismiss social things that we prescribe to things and using them metaphysically, but just to be critical as to why. But also, I don't know, when I think about particularly the law of attraction, yeah, it's truly if your practice makes you turn away from problems of the world, that's an issue, right? This idea of when you put positive things into the world, positive things come back. And then that quickly goes to, if you put negative things into the world, negative things come back. And as somebody with anxiety, I'm putting thinking negative shit all the time, but I can't help that. But if I'm feeling anxious, that's not my fault. That's something to blame me about. And particularly, a lot of those writers were just for real Nazis and for real misogynists, and would turn to people in poverty and be like, it's your fault you're in poverty because you put that idea out and now it's come back. And it's hello, there is a whole structure to this thing. And you need to, knowing these social things, actually, in terms of we're thinking about how the shape of something, the social thing of something informs the metaphysical properties, really understanding how that's come about, I believe, really improves your spirituality and the power of this thing, because you understand it deeper. Why? I have a lapis lazuli, which I love using for creativity, because as a big old art history nerd, I know that lapis lazuli has this incredible art history of being used in the Virgin Mary's color. That color was reserved for the Virgin Mary's veil. It's beautiful, rich pigment that has this aura, and that's an art history term as well as a metaphysical term throughout history, that's reserved for that type of creativity and that kind of power. So it makes sense to kind of use it in this way, and knowing that connection is helpful, and can help you work with that kind of thing.
Definitely. It really does expand your own personal, like you said, it expands your connection to it, deepens it. It's not just what it was ascribed, it's what it has also been utilized for throughout all of time, which is really important too. And yeah, I love that. Lapis lazuli for creativity. I think I use that as well. Do I use azurite? No, I think I use lapis because Cleopatra used it for her makeup. And I
Yeah.
was like, love the makeup colors. I'm
Yeah.
like, should I crush up some lapis and put it on my eyes? No, that's too far. Just
I
goes
love
blind, don't mind me.
it.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, knowing that with the influencing people's like spiritual practices, like that's so fucking deep. Like it's such a inherent problem, I guess. Even like I think one thing as well, like if I if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have read all of the books that I had at a younger age with a lot more discernment. Because unfortunately, a lot of the available books are written by assholes,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
genuinely horrible white people. Oh, but that's why I'm like, also just take this book for download the PDF for free. We'll just distribute that on the low key. But
Literally.
oh my goodness. So
Oh, sorry, I have more thoughts.
yeah, go for it.
I think particularly about um like this the notion of the goddess in Wicca, and a lot of like this idea of like the feminine being like the main god, whether that's in different practices, to be cautious of when your practice encourages you to stay in the home. There is a lot of witchcraft that really encourages you to stay in the domestic sphere of the home, and
Mhm.
notions of purity is something to be really cautious about. Like I can respect notions of miasma, but if I'm depressed and my place looks like a pigsty, I don't think that should prevent somebody from doing a spell to help feel better, from connecting to their gods to help feel better. Like the idea that people on their period couldn't go to temple, like I don't believe that's miasmic. That's not something I prescribe to. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like
It really doesn't.
what is purity? Like, because is it just basic cleanliness? We do need to be, unfortunately for health, we do need to be clean, right? That's okay. But like, what is purity? Do you even prescribe to it? Like this idea of like virgins being more connected, test like no, what? Huh? No.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you can do whatever you like, honey, and it's like you're not gonna be any less connected to some spirit. Like what is purity? Why? Do you even prescribe to the notion of purity at all? I don't know if I even prescribe to that concept because it just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm when it comes to like my because obviously I do work within the Greek magical papyri, and a lot of the spells do require only to be worn when pure and things like that. So when I do a spell for someone, I'll give them the option like this is what traditionally it was done. I don't believe that it affects it truly. So I guess I'm because I don't believe that the gods can't evolve, just like how humans have evolved. I don't believe that they're trapped in a bubble
Mm-hmm.
and haven't got the ability to evolve. I think that they've evolved with us, um, or obviously surpassed us in many things. But I also, yeah, I don't believe that they're confined to what we viewed them as saying was okay
Mm-hmm.
1,000, 2,000 years ago. So I give people the option like this is how it was traditionally done. If you feel like that's what you're being called to, do that. But if not,
Mm,
I don't think it makes it any less effective.
for sure. I mean, like, I love having, as an ADHD girly, like, I love having to be forced to clean. Like, I think, like, that's a like a
Yeah.
useful task sometimes. I definitely
Yeah.
having that layer of spirituality to make sure I clean the fuck my floors, is a useful tool.
It's so
But
useful.
there's of course a line, yeah, it's just I think it's great to kind of include that and give the option, and just knowing like sometimes these things are just ableist, like
Yeah.
um,
Like use it if it feels right for you, do that. If it doesn't, I don't believe it affects it in any way. But yeah, I'm not a purist when it comes to my ancient practice. I'm definitely a chaos magician, but not a chaos magician because I have empathy. No. Sorry, what? That was the ghost of the Four of Wands.
And confirm. I second that as witness.
Oh my goodness. So how has queer theory changed your perception and understanding of the world? Because that's like a really fucking, it's so deep.
Yeah.
Or like, do you have a story of when you like learnt about queer theory and you're like, holy fuck?
It's there's so much. There's truly so much. It's really helps me think about, I think what's most important that I've learned from it is thinking about the notion of the future, of futurity, and thinking about care. I think those are the two most important things that queer theory is really like. Yes, it's offered this really amazing way for me to, like, we say use discernment, but don't necessarily give the tools of like, what does that actually look like? Like, yes, they cross reference, but that's not necessarily teaching how to be critical. And I think like it's given me really great tools in being able to deconstruct things, but that can sometimes leave you being like, shit's fucked. Hey, like then what? Yeah. So like, what's great about knowing how to break down these categories and really question them is that that means that we can build better ones, that we can come up with better futures that care for each other better, that there are ways of living that are different, and that there are ways of just caring for each other that are different. And I can choose to prioritize my friends because I can. And I can choose to, you know, do this like community project because I can. Like that there are other options available, and that we get to choose what we put effort into. Like, yes, there are limits, like we need to earn money to pay the bills, but we can be conscious about how we use our spare time, and we can like twist things to our benefit as best we can and use that for like collective action that makes sure that we feed each other food and that we play board games together or whatever like means of like finding fulfillment outside of like what the nation considers human, which is like a productive worker who's like contributing money, like hoarding it, investing it, but not necessarily giving it to a community garden or not necessarily giving it to give your neighbor some food. Like it's, we know how we can change this, and that's so hopeful. And I think being hopeful is really radical, and something that's so important is to stay hopeful that there is better and we can do better.
Yep. Hope is so important to me. Like I've got the biggest soft spot for hope. Also, what you just said reminded me, I fucking okay, low key. Here's the tea. I love the ancient Spartans, how they handled inheritance. It was like as soon as you died, that went to the state and it would be dished out. There was no passing down funds through generations. It all no hoarding of wealth. All back into society. It's I feel like maybe we need a less harsh version of that. Like you can pass on nice things to your children and have family heirlooms, but large amounts of money, no. Into the state, let's build a school or let's build a hospital or a community garden or something like that. That just reminded me of that complete squirrel off topic.
It's totally on topic. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess like thinking about death is really important to a lot of like witchcraft. And like what you want to do with your money. Like everybody write your will. If you haven't written your will, write your will.
Yes.
If you live in Australia, go to Ozpost. You get their little My Legal Will little booklet and you write it down. Okay.
I love hearing the stories sometimes where it's like people were really rich, but they got rich in this lifetime. It wasn't inherited wealth, but their families were only there because they were rich. And then they ended up donating all of their money to like a foundation or a charity or something. And I'm like, I fucking love that. It's like, you're a cunt. You're not getting none of my money.
I love that.
Oh, I love those stories. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely has a Taurus and an Aquarius placement in there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, with all of this information, how would you say that the incorporation of queer theory has really deepened your connection and understanding of the elements, nature, spirits, deities? Do you
Yeah.
see deities as having gender, or do you feel that?
If I was to take Lady Hecate, for example, I think that she appears feminine because women in ancient Greece were a minority. I will honor that and I'll call her Lady Hecate. That makes sense. I think particularly in that kind of, I think it's okay to acknowledge kind of why spirits were presented in a certain way. At the same time, like, you can't tell me a Titan of the Liminal is a cisgender woman. Like, that's crazy.
Right?
Like, absolutely not. I use she, they pronouns on her because it makes sense to me. But I think what really, thinking about queer theory and thinking about how it's affected my practice, I remember relatively early on, when you're a new practitioner and you're getting into deities and like wanting to identify spirits, you're like, give me your name, please, let me tell you. You're like desperate, right? You're like, you really want to know. And although, yes, names are incredibly powerful, especially in sorcery, but like, this idea that you have to get this strict shape, this strict name, is something that can be really limiting. I remember I had this one spirit who I just call Spirit of Queer because they refused to give me anything. And I knew I had this, like, it was this enormous spirit. And I was like, you know, that whole feelings of self-doubt and like, is it real? Like, am I making it up? Like, who is this? And I kept getting, like, purchasing readings, being like, who the fuck are you? And every time I wouldn't get an answer. And then I had one reading, and they were like, explained how they introduced themselves to this reader, and they said they don't want to give a name or anything, and I think you're not meant to know, and neither am I. And it was just so affirming to have a reader say, actually, I don't know, and I don't actually think that's their intent. And then I thought a little bit harder about it. And you know how at the beginning of this I said I would much rather be a floating orb than flesh. Just at the beginning, I was like, oh, gender's like whack. And I was like, if I was a spirit, there's no fucking way I'd give you my pronouns. What? Like,
literally though.
Not being confined to the limitations of this physical realm, I fucking wouldn't, right? And so I think thinking about queerness in my practice really helped to relinquish this necessity to put things in boxes and actually kind of celebrate that unknowingness, and actually just letting it be. And notions of like that capitalist brain rot of having to always get better, this like progression is upwards momentum, that we have to constantly get better and improve. And not that that's a not noble cause, like of course we want to improve as people, but the fact that we have to keep growing is enforced, and that we can just kind of be still and not do shit sometimes. Like, we can just like not progress for a while, and that's fine. And I think that really helps my practice in not being so like finicky and like trying to take control of things, but actually really celebrate that this is kind of why I got into spirituality. It was like these unknowns, these questions, like wanting to have a connection to something that wasn't the mundane that I can see. And so why not celebrate the fact that these things don't always want to be in a category? They're like,
exactly
right now, and I'm like, hello. It's so huge I can't even express it, but it's like you're like, yes, thank you for learning the lesson. But yeah, I think it's like just not putting that pressure on to have these categories and to have this upwards momentum was so huge. It's actually getting what I wanted out of it, which was like peacefulness, like learning how to relax, like
Yep.
learning how to just sit with my thoughts. Like these are like were such important things for me to learn, and like to place this, like, let me buy all these things for this deity, let me like buy all these readings, like this, like that consumerism that like filters into our craft is really tricky, and I really like want to honor how difficult that is to like get over.
Mm-hmm.
And being like, actually, the what I came into this for was to try and deconstruct some of this stuff, and find different ways of living and working through it. And queer theory was such an important piece of knowledge to help me kind of work through that.
I love that. That's so important. That's really, really important. And yeah, I really hope that someone is listening at the start of their craft that can utilize that to help them with discernment, or even not at the start, just any point in their journey to help them utilize discernment and just be
Mm-hmm.
however they are, just be
Absolutely. I mean,
and feel
especially
okay
people who
doing
are
that.
so sorry. I especially people who are like, I really want to. Is this deity reaching out to me? It's like, why not just be with the energy of sun and just see what that's like? Like, you don't
Yep.
necessarily need to put a name to it right away. Like, just go direct to the source. Go straight to the river and be like, "What's up, river? What's going on?" And like
Yep.
connect with that, rather than this specific great river deity or water deity, or nymph, or yeah, druid, or like you can kind of, there's ways, like those categories aren't, they're useful and they're helpful, but they're not necessary in a like spiritual practice.
Definitely, definitely. And I think as well, like the consumerism of witchcraft is so important because I think a lot of people, they get so excited or they'll start down a new journey and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to buy everything. But like, it's so special when you take a pause to craft the thing yourself or to find the herbs yourself. Like, yes, there's some spells that do require certain herbs and things, like, especially if you're doing more of the ancient practices, because they were like recipes.
Mhm.
Um, but for most part, if you're doing folk magic and tradcraft, you can utilize the world around you because that's what gives you power. That's where you're getting your power from, is the world around you. So rather than going out and buying all of the things, do it yourself, find it yourself, craft it yourself. But again, it's also that thing of like, if you don't have the spoons and shit like that, then you've also got to respect that too.
Absolutely.
So, what mythological saga, story, or deity story, in general, do you find shows queer theory in practice? Do you have one?
Oh my god, that's huge. I don't know if I. Oh, there's like, I think about like Apollo and like the gender fuckery of him. Um, I feel like you definitely have a Loki story to share.
Loki is so fucking. Aside from the fact that I'm pretty sure that Loki and Sutek are the same god, that's a whole other thing. But I, yeah, I think the reason why Loki is so big in amongst queer in the queer community is because he himself, well, I say he, but that's just how I find that they like me to call him. But Loki gave birth, even though he was like this masculine presenting, um, very mischievous trickster god of chaos. He ended up turning into a horse, shape shifting into a horse, and giving birth to Sleipnir.
Oh.
And he fathered Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Hel, who Hel is really cool as well because Hel's like half living and half dead. So it's like, can you really ascribe gender to life and death? It's also cool. I'm going to go on a brain tangent. I find it really cool that like Hel, I guess the way that she's portrayed in the sagas presents as a female. But like in tarot, death corresponds with all of the queens as well. So it's like, even though we as females are really like, it's that moon thing as well. I don't know. It's in everything. It's in everything. Now just watch me like squirrel down a rabbit hole. This is going to be time for me all over again.
Oh my god, I can talk about time.
Oh my gosh, fucking time. I feel like I'm slowly getting a deeper grasp on it. I feel like I'm slowly hearing how across many cultures, how time is happening all at once, and how in quantum theory that like the many worlds theory within quantum theory to explain why we see particles like when we measure something, but it's actually a wave until we measure it. That's helping me with time. That's helping me wrap my head around it.
That's so great. There's this one of my favorite theories out of queer theory is the concept of queer time, and this is quite a few theorists have worked with it, but it's, you could kind of say it's coined by Jack Halberstam, who in Queer Time and Place Transgender Bodies and Subcultural Lives, I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess it up, talks about how this notion of straight time, and straight time is this like birth, like you date, you get married, you have babies, and you die. This is straight time, and it's particular. You're meant to have sex at a certain time, you're meant to get married at a certain time, have babies at a certain time. It's very structured. But this notion that particularly this was like pre-same-sex marriage laws, that queer people don't have the same sense of time, the same experience of time. So like Halberstam kind of talks about like queer nightclubs being this like you might have your first kiss, like, or what you might deem as your first kiss at like 30. You might have, you know, you might see your gender for the first time in the mirror, have this like moment of seeing yourself for the first time. Not when you're like a toddler who like recognizes their like mirrored image for the first time, but actually just like later in life. This idea that we have different things of time, and like an extended adolescence, we usually party for a lot longer. Like this, we have different sense of time. I guess like the lesbian U-Haul like joke as well. Like, you know, you just jump into things. It's like, why waste time? Let's live together. Like, this is great. You know, this notion of time being different. And I think that helped me, particularly as an asexual person who like, when it comes to relationships, it's just not a huge priority. And there's like certain types of even like gay and lesbian cultures that I don't necessarily feel like I can participate in the same way, because I don't have like the playfulness of like sexual liberation in that kind of way. Being able to be like, no, I'm just on my own sense of time, and be like, no, it's okay. Like I can find my own like way through the world is like was so important for me to like feel okay. Just to feel like no, it's actually like the pressures that we have to reach certain like pivotal moments, like flagship moments in our lives, is made up, and not something you have to prescribe to. And that's so nice and was so freeing. Oh my god, sorry, your previous question, I just remembered Zeus and his baby in his cough. It's just so like that's crazy. I just wow.
Would you like to tell that story?
I couldn't even like do the setup. All I remember is like I've like forgotten every other part of the story. Oh my god. What I did want to say was like, when I think about is particularly asexuality and aromanticism, which is my particular like specialization or like thing I love learning about, is that like being devoted to a deity or like committing to spiritual paths being its own form of like relationship, not necessarily I mean good spousal is in its own, but like that it's this different priority of connections that is kind of breaking the heteronormative. And I think that's so beautiful and really cool that you could kind of commit a lot of time and a lot of love and a lot of care to something
Yep.
that's not just a romantic and sexual partner. And I think that's so cool.
And still find like the fulfillment that you're meant to quote unquote expect from a heteronormative relationship or whatever. Like you can still find that same fulfillment within other aspects and within other relationships within your life. Fuck, I wish I knew about queer time when I was growing up, like younger, way younger, because fuck me, neurospicy me would have loved to have not felt the pressure of you have to achieve this. Like, never mind the fact that I think that I'm pretty sure that they've just released some scientific articles where if you've got like a neurospicy brain, you actually don't fully um your brain doesn't stop growing until you're in your like 30, like
Wow.
30 mark around there. So it's like, I
That's
wish I
great.
had known that queer time thing
Yeah.
as well as known that about my own brain earlier on, because I would have been like, I'm smart, but like, give me time.
Oh my god, that gets me onto another like queer theory thing, which is called crypt time, which is basically queer time, but thinking about disability.
Yep.
And I'll get the name so you can put it in the comments. But somebody speaks about like this idea of taking your time and allowing for more time. It's like, why do we have a 9 to 5 structure like when we
Yep.
could be more lenient? And that not only allows for people who are disabled and like, you know, things can just take longer, but also like if you have a racist encounter on the street or if you have a homophobic encounter, to allow for extra time to recover from these things is actually like that queer time was actually crypt time all along. It's just about like being accessible
Yep.
and giving space for things and allowing people to move and grow at their own pace. And it's like so beautiful and so like,
I love that.
so good.
I love that a lot. That's, yeah, the 9 to 5 thing, like even just again, I'm only speaking from my own experience. I think that's a neurospicy thing. It's like I have this thing that relates to that. I'm going to talk about this. But just that, like, I swear my brain works better. As soon as it hits 10 p.m. at night, my brain switches on, and it's like, where were you in the daytime?
Literally.
If I could work at night all the time, that would be great. I would have been fine 9 to 5.
Literally.
9 p.m. till 5 in the morning. Great.
I'm pretty sure there's like some research being like, there's a reason there are like day people and night people. It was like a evolutionary thing that we have like different people who are like alert at different times. Because like obviously like animals would come and kill us at night, so like you need someone to like stand watch or whatever. Like don't even get me started on 9 to 5. I'll get angry about it. It's so flawed. Like it's like women's rights is like epic and stuff, but then they didn't change the 9 to 5 at all. And it's like, you know, you can't live off one income anymore. So both people are working, yet women still have to do the majority of the domestic work. And it's like, it's fucked up.
Make it make sense. 9 to 5 work, but 9 to 3 schooling time. And it's like, okay, so now you're forcing us to pay for daycare, but also be late for work or get the kids there early for school. It's like, the math ain't mathing with your capitalistic society.
It's not mathing.
I've got some questions. Oh my goodness. Okay, so if you're a deity, how would we summon you?
Oh my god. So I've thought a lot about this. I want orange and cinnamon anything. So whether it's a physical orange and cinnamon or if it's like a candle scented or a mixture of incense or oils, orange and cinnamon's I need to smell orange and cinnamon. This is critical. I need a cup of tea or a mocha. One or the other. I need a warm beverage. I need a little beveragino. Very important.
Yep.
And then I think like a way to get my favor would be to create art. Like you'd have to be a maker.
I love that. I really love that. So Maybe if someone painted orange and cinnamon on some type of teacup
Perfect.
and
I'm
then
I'm there.
scented orange and cinnamon tea, like that
Yep.
would be great. Perfect for you. You'd be there taking
Rumptious.
this teacup.
I'm there. What do you need? What do you
This
need? I'm
teacup
summoning the
going
hound.
into a little with me.
Let's go.
Next time, do a saucer, okay?
I just want all the crockery orange and cinnamon things.
The entire set.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh my goodness. So, do you have any like favorite books as well on queer theory, queer time?
Yes, I have so many. I have them next to me, so I wouldn't leave any out. So I'll start with the witchcraft specific books.
Yep.
Cassandra Snow's a big person in like the queer witchcraft scene. So this is Queering Your Craft. This is like a very really practical, like actually so good for people new to the craft or like just want to revisit some of the basics. So good because it goes through like phases of the moon and like the seasons, like the wheel of the year and stuff like that, but in a way that's like very personable and thinking about queering it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got 3 different tarot oriented queer books. So Charlie Claire Burgess is amazing to follow on Instagram as well if you don't want to purchase the book right away. This is Radical Tarot. Then you've got Beth Maiden, who has this amazing like radical witch store in the UK, amazing decks and stuff. Anyway, this is their book,
Ooh.
All of Our Stories. It's just a tarot book as well. And then you've got this is Cassandra Snow again, but Queering the Tarot is really good.
Love it. So which one's your favorite out of those 4?
Breeze heavily. At the moment it's Radical Tarot by because it very directly, you can tell this person has studied queer theory 100%. Like they've done a degree for sure. I'm pretty sure they've done it. I think they like dropped out of a PhD. Like they were like that level. Anyway, they integrate queer theorists into how they explain the different tarot cards in such beautiful ways that just really scratch my brain.
I love that.
It's just such a beautiful, so well written, very accessible book, and very historically grounded, like really understands where each of the cards came from and like what the figures in the traditional decks, how they came to be, which was so cool. Like the hermit being like the dude who ran through the street naked, like screaming about like and I was like, what? I didn't know that. That's crazy. So literally there, I was like, that's news to me. That's epic. So good. Those are the witchy books in terms of just queer theory that informed my practice and just in general things that I love. This is Sara Ahmed's The Promise of Happiness. This is very like deconstructing heteronormativity vibes. This idea that like happiness is something that we have to achieve as this object, but it's a particular kind of happiness. Really good at kind of deconstructing that, which I think is so useful in thinking about, I guess, again, abundance and like what you actually want and who says so, what's really informing that. Also, she's just an icon. Everything she's ever written is so good. Bell Hooks, All About Love, an iconic book that everyone should read, which is all about love, deconstructing love. She's an icon. Everything she's ever written is amazing. Cruising Utopia, the Then and There of Queer Frituity by Jose Munoz. This is the maybe slightly less accessible to read, but really all about the future in terms of like queering the future, and is so hopeful. Literally says that his hope is a methodology. And it's speaking to a very particular point in queer theory as it develops, where there's this whole moment of like to be queer is to be dead. It's like this dead to society in like a societal notion, which not being viewed in the eyes of, particularly in America during the AIDS epidemic, like those notions of death and stuff was so important to queer theory and thinking about experiences of queerness. But Ozymandias really honors that, but also is like very like, okay, let's think about hope and think differently. And it's like a huge turning point of the field. So good. So good. I literally, this is, if you're a queer, this is essential reading, in my opinion. Like, essential reading.
Let me go and buy all of these books.
Truly, I'm obsessed.
And I'll read it like Kappa Kim, just in it.
This is also Jack Halberstam, who changed their name partway through. This is The Queer Art of Failure, which is so fun. You can see I've read this a couple times. It's thinking about failure as a particularly queer thing to do. Like, to fail at doing things that society deems important is queer, and it's so fun. It literally opens with Chicken Run and talking about Chicken Run as an anti-capitalist movie. Ridiculous. So much fun. I absolutely ate this up. It's definitely a bit harder. It's a bit inaccessible to read, but because it's so ridiculous, it's great. Like, it's so fun. I love this. This author is so good. I love it. In the same, not quite queer theory, but close. We've got post-colonial astrology. Alice Sparkly Cat. Reading through planets through capital, power, and labor. So good. And I also have, for my quantum physics girlies out there, this one is called The Disordered Cosmos, A Journey into Dark Matter, Space-Time, and Dreams Deferred. This is like a Black queer woman, non-binary perspective on like physics. It's so
I love that.
One of the like titles, like subtitles, is like, space-time isn't straight. You're right.
Sold. It's so fucking true, though.
It's so good. So these are some of the many books off my bookshelf. But I also just want to encourage people to read fiction. Like, when it comes to like, particularly, I know a lot of queer people in the spirituality space have read The Dispossessed, which is a sci-fi book. Fiction is such a fun space to think outside of the normative. And it's just, I encourage people just like listen to audiobooks about fiction and just be really playful and let that be a space of inspiration.
100%. That's where I get a lot of inspiration from my spell workings. I'm like, I'll read a book and then I'll be like, I wonder if I could make that happen somehow.
Yes. Love it.
So many of my spell workings are inspired by fiction. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So, and of all the information and the laughs, so where can people find you?
Yeah. Okay. So I have two different TikToks. One is called queer.witchery, which is in its humble early stages of being a queer witchery account. And then I have an account which is Kellin.Velden, which is very like ace theory adjacent. So I don't talk about witchcraft over there, but it might inspire some other thoughts and thinkings. So one or both that might intrigue, come and join. Yeah.
I love that. We definitely need there's definitely a space for it online, I think, in general, especially on TikTok, to have queer theory in a witchcraft practice, just like to help people question, I guess, what's the norm.
Absolutely. I have a series I just started on queer.witchery, where I'm queering the tarot. So I'm pulling a card and just explaining how I would queer it. Which is so fun, and I'm very excited to keep doing it. So
I love that. So everyone, make sure that you're follow along for the journey. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm sure that we'll have you back on, especially when we delve into quantum theory. I would love to have you on for that too. That'd be very cool. Queer the quantum.
Queer the quantum! Stop, that's so good. Write that down.
Write it down. All right. I've got no pens. I've got tarots, quick.
What card using could
Putting it out everywhere, not a single pen in sight.
That's okay. It's okay.
Oh,
In the
goodness.
captions, you'll get there.
Yeah, I'll try and remember. I'll try and drill that in my brain. But yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank
See you.
you.
Bye.
See you. Bye.